Hello lovelies, Sinead here from Sinead Holly Painting. Today I'm going to be talking about my menstrual cycle awareness tracking, how I do that in my traveler's notebook on an everyday basis, how I do it using art, how I do it using the moon, and how I do it to tap into different physical, emotional and spiritual well-being cues in my body. Now, I don't know if anyone has heard of Red School and Wild Power. Now, this is the gospel of menstrual cycle awareness. Alexandra Pope and Sanjay Hugo Wurlitzer are the founders of Red School. Red School is a training program. You can train online with them. I actually did the apprenticeship training last year in Stroud in the UK, residential training. I think they also do one in Italy, a residential training. That's a two-part training where you become a menstruality leader. But let me just get back to the basics. So really, I picked up this book years ago after watching a video with Alexandra Pope and being kind of very interested in the cycle and how to live more naturally with it and to be more in tune with my everyday needs and to be hormone free and, well, basically free. This book took me a while to read, I'm not gonna lie. It's a really good book, but sometimes you can start to read something and you're actually not ready to take it in. I think the first time I started to read it, I wasn't able to really read it. I had a lot going on and it was just too much. So I ended up putting it back down again. But this book is really all about how to live with your cycle and understand your cycle and to use your cycle to, as a shamanic awakening, the shamanic initiation, yeah, there we go. Our shamanic initiation, you know, according to these theories, is really a menarche. When we start our first bleed, we are initiated into something great through our bleeding time. And this book really helps you to get in touch with that. There's many stages that you go through. It's not something you're just going to learn overnight or experience, because it really does take a while to A, start to track deeply with your cycle and to build the habit, and then B, to be able to go deeper with it, which takes years, really. And it's really worth it, because I started this in, when was it that I really started to track? It would have been springtime. Yeah, springtime in 2018 was when I really was reading this book, and I was really like, I want to know more, and I had the time, and I was like, look, I'm gonna go deep with this. And I was very interested in the cycle and how I can use it for, especially for creativity as an artist and as my work as an art therapist. So in this book they talk about the different seasons and going into deeper, much deeper work than the seasons too, which I'm not going to tap into now because it would be a super long video. But this book is great if you want to start tracking, and it gives you lots of advice of how to start tracking in your cycle, different physical things to look out for, emotional things, spiritual things. There's many different examples, and they talk about tuning in with the seasons, the inner seasons. If you've heard of that, the inner seasons, as in the bleeding time being the inner winter, then spring is the pre-ovulation time, inner summer is when we're ovulating and we're like super women and we can take on the world and do everything and nothing can stop us, and it's like super sexualized energy, and that's such a great time. But then you come back down into the autumn, which I always see as the truth-speaking time, the inner autumn, premenstrual time, and then back to inner winter, the bleed. And there's lots of little nuances in between that, the more that you learn these things. But if you've heard of the inner cycles, the inner seasons, this is Alexandra Pope's work. This is her life's work. A lot of people don't realize that she was the one that coined the inner seasons. So if you already heard the inner seasons, you know her, but you just didn't know maybe it was her. So yeah, I recommend getting this book. And also she did do another book that also I really love, which is The Wild Genie. This was her first book actually. And this one has lots of stories about women and the pains and how they got over their pains using these natural methods. Sometimes alongside medical interventions depending on the severity of what was going on, and also how it can be linked to emotional traumas, and how to heal them will heal the cycle, and how the cycle shows us things that need to be dealt with in our life. It's very fascinating work, and I'm just gonna leave that there because I don't want to carry on for too long with the books. So yeah, like I said, it took me a while to really get into it, and I have developed my own system now, and I wanted to share my system just in case you're thinking about setting up your own system and you're wondering how to go about it. And there's so many different apps and so many different ways people are doing it. Me myself, I didn't use an app. I like to do things physically, and I wanted to make it artistic, so it really had to be a journal. And for it to work, it had to be simple for me to use. It had to be something I could carry on the go. When I'm away on holiday, I can bring this with me. I can bring this book with me anywhere that I really want to go. I don't need to take this out in the morning to do my cycle awareness. This can be just on my desk, but if I am away, this is easy to take with me. So that was also important because we do obviously go on holidays and things like that, and I have to take into account, can I bring this with me? And I do spend time abroad, so it was important to put it into my traveler's notebook, which I love, and I talk more about how I set that up in some other videos I'll link below. But this would be my menstrual cycle awareness journal. I'm going to think of like a catchy name for this journal at some point, but I haven't thought of it yet. And within this journal, you can see that I have split the page here. This came out a bit later actually. This was not something I did in the beginning. The beginning was even more simple than this, but I added in the moon cycles, and my temperature would go in here, as using the temperature is a way of tracking your ovulation. So I was interested to see if I could use natural fertility methods, and personally I believe you need to be doing that for quite a while before you can say you know when you're ovulating. Definitely at least 6 months to get a tune in of your cycle and how it really works, because everyone's cycle is going to be a little bit different, because each woman is a little bit different. So I would say, you know, so obviously I always start in a winter. Day one is in a winter, is your bleeding day. If you're counting for your cycle, day one is always the first day of your bleed, your proper bleed, not spotting but bleeding. So then I would sometimes write things, you know, how I'm feeling, blah, blah. Sometimes physical things, sometimes spiritual things, but I'd always write a little bit. I put the dates, and so this would be my inner winter, inner spring. I do miss, obviously, you see here I miss a day, and you just go back to it. You just, you know, no one's perfect. There's going to be days you're going to miss out on doing this, and I know that there will be days that I miss out on doing this, but that's okay. And you can see, like in the beginning, this was actually my first book here. I actually wrote notes from the book, but like there's many days that I missed, and this was a much more simple version. I was trying to fit it originally onto 2 pages, so I like the aesthetic of that, but it became too much, so I ended up splitting it into 1 page for 1 season, so 1 week on 1 page, because I had more time, more space to write if I wanted to write. This restricted me. I need to be able to write a really small amount. But that's just how I started it, and maybe it was easier for me to start it this way because I didn't have to write so much, but I did miss a lot of pages. You know, there was 1 month that just really didn't work, so I was like, okay, start again. So, you know, what month was that? That was, you know, June. I started May, and then June it just slipped away, and then I was like, okay, now I want to do this, so I just set the intention that I'm going to do it, and I started again. To build a habit takes a while. But if you want to build a habit, you can. I think it's the willpower to build it, and eventually it becomes something you really get into. So you can see it has changed a lot. This is my revised version, and what I find works best, having a week for each page, because then I can do the moons and my temperature and the The reason I'm doing the moons actually is to just connect in with the outside cycle as well as my inside cycle, and especially when you reach menopause, working with the moon is really beneficial. So Alexandra Pope and Sanjay always say, you know, it's never too early to start preparing for the menopause. And I believe Alexandra Pope's going to release a new book this year on her work on it, because it is amazing, and it's really a huge transformation period for women. So I'd also write my energy each day, how I'm feeling, and so inward energy or outward energy is kind of a way of looking at going down inwards to the bleed time and moving upwards towards the ovulation time, if that makes any sense. And then after this, so this will be 1 month, and then after that I don't paint every single day, but some days I will paint something, and I sometimes write a few words. And I also would pull a card. These are the Red School cards, Red Power cards they call them, and they're just really, they look so simple, but actually they really are very powerful, and they're all split up into colours. So obviously the red is the inner winter, so then I would just, if I'm in my inner winter week, I would just take those and spread them out and pick one on each day, and they give you, you know, different things to think about. You know, the green spring, and then you've got the summer, and then the autumn, you know. And these are fun to use. I do recommend them if you're looking to add some cards in. So then I would paint and write different things of how I'm feeling. Some days paint more, some days paint less. And it was really a way of by painting as well as a way of connecting into what I'm starting to understand as the womb consciousness and messages. But this will be done very quickly in the morning, so I'm not putting a lot of time into this, because there's no way I would do this on a daily practice if I had to say do an hour painting every morning. That's not going to happen. Some days I do bigger paintings from my day. That's I keep a separate journal for that, and I do that in my studio and my studio days. But this is kind of an art therapy practice, I would call it more, because I'm really tapping in to the deeper levels of the cycle. And that would be my morning practice, and it would be about 20 minutes long. I would do a little yoga routine, sometimes sun salutation or whatever I'm feeling into at the time, to stretch my body out. Then I would go into a womb yoga, womb meditations, kind of as developed by Uma Tulsi. Her womb yoga book is amazing, and I would then meditate into the womb before I did any of this tracking. So it was a way for me to really go deeper with it and to make it much more of a spiritual experience, as well as my literally physically tracking what my body's doing. And yeah, so that's really my that's what I'm looking for. This is my setup, and it works really well for me because, as I said, I'm an artist, I'm a creative person, and I think if you are more of a creative person, you do lean towards actually doing things in reality rather than on apps or digital. I mean, like solid when I say reality. And also doing these little paintings is just fun and can be a nice way to release any tension, or you know, if I'm feeling kind of heavy or bloated with my period, or maybe too euphoric with the ovulation time, too out of my body, it can bring me back down into my body a little bit. Sometimes I write, these are things that I've now written in here from the book, or things that I've been learning more about the cycle. I will sometimes write them in these books because it keeps it together just for my own records. I like to do that. And yeah, so like I said, I don't paint every day, but I do try and do this little tracking every day, because some days I don't want to paint, so I don't force myself to paint either, because I feel like that would be going against the point of it. And yeah, so winter, spring, summer, autumn, you know, and then afterwards it'd be the after painting is always after the tracking of that, you know, and just yeah, you can tell a difference there. So obviously day 2 is like really bleeding, maybe that was quite a heavy day. Day 12, you know, I'm getting into coming towards summer, towards ovulation, and like woo, you know, and then I'm coming back down again into the womb being pulled deep into the cosmos, probably being pulled out of myself in some ways. And I believe that's what happens when we bleed. And the visioning time of bleeding, it is some of the best visioning time that I find, that I learned through working with the book Wild Power, how to go deep with that visioning time and to allow the universe to guide us. So this is, yeah, my basic tracking, and it makes sense for me. This was actually one of my mantras, my womb mantras that I had during this time. I still use this mantra quite a lot in the morning, that I have the spaciousness within me, that my womb is space. Our wombs are space. If they're not filled with a baby, there's a lot of space there. And in a world that we can get very overwhelmed and very busy and so much going on, that to remind ourselves that we have the space that we crave, but actually that it is there within us all along. It helps me when I do sometimes feel very overwhelmed with social media and just digital expectations and pressures. So yeah, I hope this was some kind of a useful